Thank you everyone for coming on this hot and balmy day. We're in Sunset Park, 8th Avenue in Brooklyn. 8th Avenue is part of New York 10. Manhattan's Chinatown is part of New York 10, and we're really pleased to hold this forum today for our New York 10 congressional candidates. First off, the space we're in is being provided by New England Enrichment Center. We're really happy that we have a space to hold this forum. Thank you very much. My name is Yatin Chu, and I am president of Asian Wave Alliance. With me is Phil Wong. He is the president of Chinese American Citizens Alliance, short for CACAGNY, I guess. And also with us, who will be joining me, is Yifang Chen. She is a co-founder of New York City Residents Alliance. Our three organizations are co-sponsoring today's forum, and we developed the questions that we will be asking the candidates today. So, to kick things off, I want to give each candidate up to 2 minutes to tell us a bit about yourself and why you're running for New York 10. And feel free to stand up as you're speaking. Totally up. All right.
Hi everyone, good afternoon, well it's good evening now. I'm honored to be here, privileged to see all of you. Thank you all for coming out. We're having a heat wave here in New York City, so you know, we need to stay cool and hydrated. I was in Manhattan earlier today and it's like you see ambulance sirens everywhere. To introduce myself, I'm Minnie Hamden. I live just around the corner from here. I was born and raised in this area. You'll find me at every bakery in 8th Avenue with my mother. I'm a graduate from St. John's Business School, and I'm a financial analyst by profession and started venturing out into other lines of business. So my background is business. I also studied law. I didn't practice law, but I studied law, and I believe my background in law and business will complement my work in politics. I've done a lot of community service during my time in St. John's. I worked with the Peter Cardella Center, which is a senior care center, for a few years, and started volunteering also in different Chinese communities here in Raleigh, in Chinatown, Manhattan, and Chinatown, Brooklyn. I'm running for U.S. House in District 10 for so many different reasons, but one of the primary reasons is that I noticed that there was a disconnect between the constituents and at the time Jerry Nadler. Now that it's become an open seat, obviously voters need to listen and watch carefully the candidate's backgrounds and what the candidate can offer to the people. We need someone who's going to be on ground, who's going to call for action, who's going to engage with the constituents, work with the NYPD right now with the rise in crime, work with the Asian Crime Task Force. So right now there are so many changes happening, and it's a good time to see a new face, a new candidate who's going to offer new services and new engagements with the community. So I'm very honored to get to be here. Thank you very much. Asian Wave Alliance.
Hi. Thank you very much for including me this evening.
I didn't want, I was going to wait until you finish.
No problem. Please
Welcome.
make yourself comfortable. I didn't want to interrupt you. So.
Thank you.
No, okay. So I just want to say a little bit about myself and why I'm here. In talking to one of the other candidates, he mentioned that when he first came, his family came to the Lower East Side, and then he came to Brooklyn. Well, that's the path that my family followed. My parents are immigrants. My mother was a refugee, and her family were refugees. They came to Lower East Side, and then they came to Paradise, Brooklyn. So I grew up in Brooklyn, proud resident of Brooklyn. I lived here almost all of my life. Not all of it in District 10, but a lot of it in District 10. So I wanted to tell you about that immigrant background. And by the way, I spent 8 years in the U.S. Congress. One of the things I'm proudest of having done in the Congress was to chair the Immigration Subcommittee, where I fought very hard for immigrants' rights, for the entry of immigrants to the United States. I actually wrote the Refugee Act, which is the basic law governing the admission of refugees to the United States, with Senator Ted Kennedy. That's the law that we wrote then, and it's still the law today. And was involved in the admission of tens of thousands, if not more, refugees coming from Vietnam during the Boat People crisis, many of whom were ethnic Chinese. very proud of that record. I will fight for expansion of immigration rights and refugee rights. I'm running for Congress because this country is in a very dangerous situation. We're in a crisis now. We're being attacked by a out-of-control extremist Supreme Court that wants to take away women's rights. And if they can take women's rights away, more than half the population, no one's rights are safe. No minority is safe. No group is safe. Our rights are in danger. We need someone who can stand up to that extremist Supreme Court. Also, we are faced with a problem of a former president who wants to be reelected by means of fraud and by means of stealing an election. I stood up to presidents in the past. I have a record of doing that. I can do it again. In addition, we are facing other problems. It's bad enough that we have to worry about our democracy's survival. But on top of it, as you know, here in the city and around the country, we're facing problems of inflation. I was on the House Budget Committee. I know something about that problem. I was on it for 5 years. We need to do and we can do many things to fight that, including going after the price gouging that's taking place by oil companies and others. But there are other mechanisms, and we can discuss that later. Gun violence. I was district attorney of Brooklyn for 8 years. We professionalized the office. I stood up against racial discrimination in jury selection. I ended that practice, a practice that would apply to every single ethnic and religious and racial group in this country. We stopped it. We put a stop to it. I'm proud. I was the only DA in America to take that position. On crime, I know a little bit about that. We did a lot to protect victims and to enhance the treatment of them. But we also did prosecutions of guns, and right now we need to do much more. I thought this problem would be solved, but it's not. The problem we have to address in a variety of ways, including putting pressure on state and local and federal governments to do more vis-a-vis gun manufacturers. They buy billions of dollars worth of weapons from gun manufacturers, every single level of government, and they ask for nothing in return. Well, we can start demanding, and I'm going to start demanding that governments demand the right thing from gun manufacturers. So these are some of the things I want to talk about and will do as Congresswoman from this area. Thank you.
We just remind them we're 2 minutes.
Okay.
This way everyone will have their time.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jimmy Lee. I was a certified teacher. I am not a career politician. I live in District 10 for most of my life. So I know the problem and I know the district and the community very well. New York City right now is going through a crisis. We have a crisis for public safety issue, right? Also, there has been so many hate crimes against Asians, against Jewish community, and in other groups. So we had to come together to find short-term and long-term solution to these problems. So I co-founded Asian American Democratic Club. I am the current president for the club. And I also the co-founder of Asian American Community Empowerment, nonprofit coalition of 60 organizations that are nationwide. So in the past 10 years, as a community advocate, I worked together with other leaders from other community and elected officials on important issues like social, like API hate, education, housing, and many other social issues. I know that education and knowledge are key to empower people for social change and social equality. I'm running because our country right now has been so divided. I want to bring people together to focus on solutions, not divisions. Thank you all. Nice seeing you. Thank you.
Are people coming in, or shall I get started?
Have a seat.
Have a seat. Have a seat.
No, it's okay.
Hi, everyone. My name is Maud Marin, and I'm running for Congress in District 10. I want to thank the Asian Wave Alliance for this forum, and in particular, I want to thank Asian Wave Alliance for inviting everybody to this forum. Many of you know me. I've been an attorney. I've worked as a public defender for many years at the Legal Aid Society. I've been a parent leader and a parent advocate in our school system for many years, being elected to the largest school board in Manhattan. But you can find my biography. For those of you who don't know me, you can find my biography on my website, maudmarin.com. What I really wanted to talk to you about now in these introductory remarks is something that's very germane to this forum and this night, which is the importance of hearing from all voices. A few weeks ago in Brooklyn, I was excluded from a forum because the forum organizers didn't like my point of view. Well, the whole point of a democracy is that everybody gets to participate and have a say. And so I'm really delighted that Asian Wave Alliance has invited everybody, right from the most progressive Democrat to the most moderate Democrat to the Republican candidate. And come this general election, you're going to have a choice of candidates. And I really think, in our primary first, obviously, and then the general election, I really think it's so crucial that we take the time in a democracy to listen to people that we don't agree with. Liz Holtzman was just talking about the importance of protecting our democracy, talking about the Supreme Court. What we absolutely need to do is fight for the right of those we disagree with to be heard. Right? Dan Goldman isn't here right now, but I really strongly disagree with him in his support for Alvin Bragg. I disagree with Carlina Rivera about defunding the police, about her vote in City Council to get rid of the street crimes unit. I think that was a mistake. But if this forum tried to exclude her or tried to exclude Dan based on that viewpoint of diversity, I would stand up for them. And I would fight for them to be here and to be heard, because that's what we need from a congressperson. We need congresspeople who will represent everyone in the district, including people that they don't agree with. And so I thank Asian Wave Alliance for having a truly inclusive forum, and I look forward to sharing my thoughts and ideas with my fellow candidates. Thank you.
Well, good evening, everyone. I hope you're well. Thank you for being here. My name is Carlina Rivera. I am a New York City councilwoman, and I am proudly representing the communities that raised me. So I am a lifelong New Yorker. I'm actually a daughter of the district. I have spent my life in NY-10, and now I'm able to serve them in the New York City Council. To give you a brief background of me, my story is very, very humble. I grew up in Section 8 with a single mother in the Lower East Side who spent her life as a public servant. I knew since the moment I was born that every single thing I would have to fight for. I wanted to know that in my community people always had opportunities, and so I've used my life in service, in education, fighting for affordable housing, and making sure that we are taking care of our seniors. So I am a fighter. I always have been, and I always will be. And I am very dedicated to my community. I went to my first tenant association meeting when I was a kid. I served on my local community board, where I met my husband. Not everyone who serves gets to meet their husband, but I was very lucky. And now I have the honor and the privilege of representing where I grew up in the City Council. And what I've been able to do is to deliver on the issues that we are all fighting for. I want to take this opportunity to tell you that yes, I think unity is important. And I want to tell you what I've been able to do in the council. I've been able to directly fund affordable housing. I've been able to fight to make sure that we have funding in our school system, and that families feel supported, that they have access to good, affordable food and very good health care, regardless of their immigration status or ability to pay. These are the four basics I always say are important, and these are the things that I will fight in Congress to make sure that I deliver for you as the next Congresswoman for New York 10. Thank you so much for having me.
And I see Ryan Robinson come on in.
Come on in.
You're gonna go right into your 2-minute introduction. If you don't mind. Here you go.
All right,
Right
thank you.
there.
Apologies, I came straight
You're
from the New York
welcome.
One
You're welcome to
studio.
stand up if you like.
Okay, I prefer to.
2 minutes.
So, thank you, Asian Wave, thank you so much for having me. This is my third go-around with the Asian Wave, and I'm just as happy as ever to be here. I've gotten to know the community and many of the members quite well, and I'm very, I feel for what's happening with the Asian American community. In fact, I'm devastated because as a Jewish guy, I feel real kinship for the issues that are occurring here, not only in the district, but nationwide. But specifically in New York City, we're talking about hate crimes. We're talking about both just general violence, victimization against Jews, where hate crimes are up nearly 400% year to date. With Asian Americans, we've seen enormous surges, and we need to build a coalition between Jews and the Chinese or the Asian American community, and we need to stand up for each other. Now, on the federal level, I'm going to bring oversight to the shelters that have been victimizing our communities. I'm the only one sitting here today that was there multiple times protesting against the new jail in Chinatown, who was there multiple times protesting against the oversaturation of shelters in Chinatown. We need to protect Chinatown, we need to protect the Asian American community, we need to protect everybody from hate crimes. So I'm here to say that not only do I stand against the new jail, but I have a federal policy that will solve this problem. When they federalize Rikers, as congressman, I'll make sure it stays open. Because we need to fix Rikers. We don't need to close it down and build borough neighborhood jails where kids are gonna look up while they're playing in their playgrounds and small businesses are gonna be ruined. Thank you very much.
Appreciate you jumping right into the camp.
Happy to do it.
All right. We're going to get started with our first question. Something that are on the minds. I just want to say something. Look, we're definitely going to focus on issues that matter to the Chinese communities in New York 10, and that's why we're having this forum. But we're Americans. We're New Yorkers. We face all the same issues that everyone else cares about. So, with that as a preface, I'm going to ask the first question. I went to Stop and Shop looking for eggs today, and this is Saturday, July 16th. A dozen of white eggs, grade A jumbo, cost $4.39, more than double from a few months ago. Prices on gasoline, groceries have been spiking up across the board. This is a crisis, especially for seniors. Social Security payments have not doubled, and people's wages have not doubled either. With inflation at a 40-year high, 9.1%, and not coming down anytime soon, and without pointing fingers to Russia, Ukraine, or Donald Trump, if elected, what is your immediate solution to bring relief to the inflation problem we're facing now? We want to get through a lot of questions, and we have, 6 candidates here. So if you can keep your responses to 1 minute. I'm going to give you a break and start here.
Thank you very much, Anthony. Yes, our economy right now is in turmoil, where the economic risks are very high right now. In order to mitigate the economic and business risks, we need to look at so many different factors. The first one is we need to evaluate what our country is doing in terms of large-scale, mid-scale, and small-scale projects. First of all, we need to look at how the job market is doing. There are so many markets in one market. We have different sectors right now that are suffering from high inflation. We know oil and gas companies are not the ones to blame. There are so many other reasons. If we want to start underwriting projects, we can actually come up with so many different risks among the, just by looking at the risk-reward profile of different projects. The inflation risk is high, that's correct. The way we can tackle it is by looking at the interest rates. We need to do something about the interest rates by lowering the interest rates. For example, if we talk about student loans, We can lower the interest rates on the Stafford loan, the Pell Grant program. We can start from there. And then we can start creating programs that will minimize the current crisis that our economy is facing right now. Thank you.
As I mentioned earlier, when I was in Congress, I served for 5 years on the House Budget Committee. I also took economics at Harvard College, so I have a little bit of background on this. There's no magic bullet that's going to immediately solve the problem. And one thing you'll know about me as a congresswoman is I'm not going to tell people, give people false hopes. But there are things that can be done. I started to talk about them. Just like the pandemic exposed the structural racism in our society and how poor people had been left out of our healthcare system, this crisis now, the inflation crisis, shows other kinds of structural problems in our economy. Oil company price gouging, antitrust issues that have been left to fester for years. We have to begin to address that. With regard to inflation, I would love to be able to cut student loan interest and the rest, but right now the Fed is raising interest rates as a way of slowing the economy, and it's not realistic to ask and they stop it. That's part of the problem. They're going to try to slow the economy down in order to fight inflation. Hopefully they won't cause a recession at the same time. This is a very dangerous situation for us, but we have to deal with the structural problems underlying this, and we need to address them. Will it happen right away? No, but we can't never let a crisis go to waste, and this crisis is one that we ought to be able to solve, going after the monopolies, going after price gouging, and protecting the consumer.
As a way to combat inflation, so as your congressional candidate, I will work together with state and local officials to work on way to help low-income and vulnerable New Yorkers. Couple ways to do it. One way is to create like a universal basic income for those families who need extra cash to spend during this difficult time. So we can also do tax rebate to low income and households, so they will have more disposable income to spend on that. So that's the two ways to combat that. So universal basic income for needy families, as well as tax rebate for small property owners, and as well as the New Yorkers who need a little bit extra cash to make ends meet. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I think what we have to understand is how we got here. If we want to prevent more, economic trouble, and particularly with regard to inflation, we got here by overspending, right? The federal government, during the time of COVID, decided to print money and send an enormous amount of money. If you don't understand that, and you don't understand that as the root cause of how we got here, you'll continue to make those same mistakes. I'll give you some very concrete examples as a New York City mom. Every single person who has a kid in public school, and I have 4 kids in public school, got food vouchers, EBT cards with money, whether you needed them or not. My kids come home, school has already ended, but during the year, came home every other day with COVID tests in their backpack. Not if they needed them, just because our city spent so much money buying them. And those big federal bills, the COVID Recovery Act and the various acts that spent so much money, is what caused our inflation. We need to have, I actually agree with Liz that there is, that it is a complicated issue, but we can understand that it is very, very clear that the overspending that happened, which didn't, by the way, solve for the inequities that were revealed during COVID, that overspending is what caused our inflation, and we have to understand that so that we can make better decisions going forward.
Thank you very much. This is a really important question because, as I mentioned, I think food is the basic, and when you're going into the supermarket and spending $5 or a little over $5 on milk, it really does affect your family. And so, as we saw, even exacerbated in the pandemic, lines at our pantries and at some of our hot food kitchens, the line was getting longer and longer. And we actually have to fund those programs and make sure that they are available to people who are not able to get the full nutrition that they need with the wages that are coming into their home. And some of the ways that we do that is to also fund the programming that is there to support our low-income families. That includes our senior centers, not just for food, but for socialization. Being a healthy person includes preventing isolation and depression. The other thing I would say is that ensuring that wages are steady and they're consistent, so I do agree that making sure we have a robust workforce opportunities and job training is important. And for our small businesses that are struggling, they do need technical assistance and support, so that way we can find that balance and, of course, hold anyone who is price gouging accountable. And the last thing I'll say is that everything is very intersectional. So we have to make sure that transit and housing and healthcare is accessible and affordable, so that way people can feel like they're not just surviving in this city, that they are thriving.
Maud actually brings up a good point. It is economic, and when you overprint cash, you devalue the dollar, and that is quite simple. So we need to look at the social programs that are working, and we need to bring in some level of austerity to weed out the social programs that are not. For instance, the $3.5 billion shelter industrial complex, money can be better spent treating the homeless population. Obviously it's not working. That's an example of a social program that we need to reevaluate. Furthermore, the supply chain has a big part in this. With an oversupply, or I should say an undersupply of goods, and an overexcited demand force, what's happening is that the supply chain is clogged up, it's global, and there are ships in Shanghai that are not getting out and delivering goods here to the United States. We need to look at alternative supply chain logistics, and we need to look into using our own oil and not being reliant on international oil, because environmentalists need to realize that it's the same planet. So whether we buy it from Saudi Arabia or here, it's the same thing.
And we will all try to be better on the time.
Okay, all right. You are hearing the buzz, right? Okay, all right.
Okay.
We have a lot of topics, and I just want to cover all of them.
We'll try.
Phil,
Get the microphone back to this end.
we
Okay.
should probably alternate the start and not,
So go this way?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Or start with Liz at
Okay,
least,
sure.
and then go down the line. Does that make sense? Because we're not, give the next person.
Do you have a stopwatch?
I'll take care
You
of
take
this.
that, okay. Yes.
Could you just stand over on that side?
Stand over on that side, okay.
Sorry about that.
Okay. Okay. All right, the next question is regarding taxes. Lawmakers in Congress, such as AOC, are doubling down on taxes, urging more taxes on corporations and millionaires. By examining the decades of urban decline in cities like Detroit and Rochester, what is clear is the higher you raise the taxes, the faster the corporations would move out. And with job losses, residents would leave. With the city becoming more unsafe, more people will leave. Residents who stay behind know that they will be paying more taxes to cover those who moved out, which forms a vicious cycle of more people willing to press the panic bar and take the fire exit. Question: if elected, what is your solution to keep corporations in your district and in your state so as to maintain the tax base? And what will you do to bring corporations into your district to boost the economy?
So there's a lot there, and it is complex. Truly, the families who are responsible for much of the tax base are leaving in droves, and that's reflected by the public school enrollment statistics. So we have to do a better job of keeping this city safe and as an environment that parents feel comfortable raising their children. You know, taxes are important.